Welcome to this demo of Pryme Time. In this demo, we will walk through different features in the timesheet, time tracking, and also additional reporting capabilities. We start off with opening the timesheet. Here we can enter time by simply entering the name of the customer, and if there's only one project, the project number will be automatically filled in. In this case, we've also defined a default task, and this is also automatically filled in. Now I need to enter the number of hours spent, and then I can enter a description. With Pryme Time, you get additional functionality for predefined text that you can open from a list. Here I have a text for a workshop preparation. If the text is very long and does not fit inside the description field, you can use the extended description capabilities where you can enter long text, multiple lines, up to 2000 characters in total. And here I'll complete the text saying this was preparations for workshops regarding a kickoff and some admin work. And we immediately see that the word admin is highlighted because it's part of a rule set that defines admin as a work we do not want to have in our time entry descriptions. I can then correct that and I can continue with my time entry. For projects where you want to select directly from the list, that is also possible. That could be admin time, for instance. And if there's no predefined task, then you simply select the task from the list of tasks. There's a possibility to automatically create time entries based on work assignments. For that, I will switch over to the matrix view, which is a different representation of the time entries created. In this case, separated by individual day. I use the update with work assignments functionality. This will pull in all my resource planning as suggestions for time entries. And so we see on different days a number of hours is automatically entered, and that is because I had that as planned time in my resource planning. I can of course adjust that as needed. Time tracking is another capability. I will open the time tracking screen, and within here we can track time with a start-stop timer functionality. I can start a timer immediately, then enter a description of what I was in. Let's say it was a meeting. And then I can select, of course, the customer name, the same way as I did before, the project and the task code. When I've completed the task, I will go in and I'll press the stop button, and it will track how long the task was in total. In this case, it was, of course, very short because I only press stop after a few seconds, but usually it would be a longer time. And this time will then be transferred onto the time sheet. It is possible to use the Outlook calendar as a basis for time tracking. For that, I can use the sync from Outlook action. And this will create time tracking entries automatically based on all my appointments, excluding private appointments. So I automatically get a list of all the time I spent according to my calendar. Now, this can of course be a bit overwhelming. So if you want to have a better overview and visual representation, you can use the time tracking calendar to view what your time tracking for this week have been so far. In this graphical view, we can see all the different entries and we can see where they are placed in time. We can see in this case I have two overlapping pieces of work. Maybe that is correct. Maybe I did work on two things at the same time, but probably that is not correct, and it is something that should be corrected either by moving or deleting. I can also change the duration of tasks if they took longer than what I originally put in, just stretching them out. I can of course create entries manually simply by double clicking in here and entering what I did and pressing OK. And then again, I can adjust the length. This way I can fill my entire day. It's also possible to pull in existing time entries. So in this case, I might have an internal meeting that I had not placed on the timeline, so to speak. So I can simply pull it in and it will appear on the calendar. In the side menu, you will get a numerical representation of how much time is tracked and what is the expectation for this week. Back on my timesheet, I will then, as a final step, submit my timesheet for approval with the Submit Timesheet functionality. Pryme Time also comes with a number of insights and reporting capabilities. You can use the Pryme Time Resource Time Analysis to look at a period of time and see what the expectations versus the actuals for each resource are. In this scenario, we have a number of different resources. We have predefined what their expected time is, and we can see the number of hours they actually worked on customer projects and their utilizations the internal time, their absence, and so on. Similarly, we also have resource amount analysis, where we look at how much is the expected amount to be invoiced for each of the resources, and we look at what are the totals for the given period and have the comparison of those two numbers. When it comes to resource planning, we have reports for showing the workload and planning. Here we can see a breakdown of the number of hours we have planned for each individual for every period of time. Here I'm showing it by week, but it could also be shown by other periods, being day, month, quarter, year, or accounting period. Similarly, we can show this as either hours or as a monetary amount. It's also possible to show both what is on order, but also what is on quote, meaning projects that are not yet committed with a customer. Pryme Time also includes functionality to look at the time entries and the pattern of when people enter time versus when they actually perform the work. This is captured in our time entry pattern report, which you can download from the Role Center. The time entry pattern report is broken up into 3 parts. A view that shows the creation of time versus when the work was done. This is the left-hand side. And here we show bars that represent each day of the period. For each day, we can see how much of the time was reported after the work was done, how much of the time was reported when done, and we can also see the total percentage of the entered done on this day. In my example, we will see that 42% of the time is done on Monday, which is of course much more than would be expected. The average on a regular week would be 20% on each day. This probably represents that people are tracking time on Mondays for work performed in a previous week. The stacked area, the red-green in the background, show the percentage referring to the same day worked as entered. Here we have 79% of the entries created on Monday referring to another day. In this case, that would be the previous week. And on average, these entries was about 5 days overdue, meaning on average, they refer to work done on the Wednesday in the previous week. The most optimal pattern is, of course, when the stacked area is completely green, meaning you reduce the risk of missing time worked when invoicing. Secondly, we have the creation of time entries versus period end. This shows when the time entries were created compared to the end of the timesheet period, which would normally be Sundays. The red part shows the part that was after the period end, meaning way too late, whereas the green is before the period end. And that could be on the right day or the wrong day, but it is still at least within the right period. So again, all should be green here. The last part shows on average how late the time entries were created. This is the average overdue period end. And the bar to the left here showing 1.7 shows the after entries, meaning that most of these entries were not included in a Monday management performance report. On average, we are a couple of days late on entering time on this. To ensure that people submit their time, we have timesheet reminders that will be sent out and where people can see what time they tracked in the given week. They're then given options to either click review and adjust if they want to make changes, or they can click the submit now button to immediately submit the timesheet. The email includes details on how much time was entered and what the expected time was. Similarly, we have reminders that can be sent out to managers that summarize all the resources who have not submitted their timesheets so the manager can remind them.